Let's have a talk, let's have a chat, talking about a little this and that. Hello and welcome to another episode of This and That. I am your host, Mary Easterling, and we are continuing on with Project 2025. This ought to be like part 4, and we're still going through the Agenda 47. In our last episode, when I ended, I kind of read through the rest of the topics. There's a lot of them, so this takes a while. So then we're continuing on. This would probably be the second episode of the Agenda 47. But before I begin, to listen to the last episode from This and That, go to talkingaboutthисandthat.wordpress.com and click on the podcast link. You'll also find me at mfeast.substack.com. That will be where the written portions are. I'm also putting the audiovisual portions up there for those of you that don't want to read and just want to listen. Well, the written is the script. The rest, well, I mean, it's either spicy, saucy, or downright ranting. So, propositions relating to the expansion of presidential powers include. Now, this is the executive point. This is the I'm the POTUS now, and this is what I get to do now. Trump's plan to expand presidential powers is based largely on a controversial and not widely held interpretation of the Constitution known as the unitary executive theory. The plan includes, quote, dismantling the deep state and reclaiming our democracy from Washington corruption, unquote. Personally, yes, please. See, because the corruption is the deep state, just sit on that for a moment. The corruption of our government is what's controlling our government, as in the legal bribery, Citizens United, corporations, their causes, their lobbyists, packing the playing field with their players, backing their players, people that never get out of Congress. I mean, where's Mitch McConnell? Is he dead yet? Woo. Why don't they want to admit that he's gone? What skullduggery and what company is going to do said skullduggery to Mitchie's state? Ooh, 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 ooh. Personally, I think they ought to just leave it alone. Yeah. Nobody gets a place. You've already got the sister of the guy that died. She doesn't know what she's doing, or so it's alleged. She's not a foreign policy person. She's a domestic policy person. Well, all right, back to the script. By firing government employees, reissuing Executive Order 13957, Schedule F, quote, restoring the president's authority to fire rogue bureaucrats, unquote. Also reforming FISA courts, declassifying and publishing, quote, unquote, all documents on deep state spying, censorship, and corruption. Oh, yes! Hells yes! All the Citizens United skullduggery, Epstein, etc. From all the Epstein stuff that seems to be leaking out into the not-so-generalized press, the pundits are starting to suspect that Epstein is part of the deep state, but he's an international player. He might be deeper than we know, as in there's a theory that he might be Mossad connected to Russia. What does this say about Netanyahu and Putin? Are they knowing one another? Is this Yada? Oh, BB, are you Yada-ing? Vlade, is this a political bed? Are you sleeping together? You know you're men. That's gay. LGBTQ. That might be my stance, and maybe I'm sticking with it, and maybe I'm not. Maybe I'm just being crass. Anyway, back to the script. Taking action against, quote-unquote, government leakers. Oh, why? They're the only people that are telling us the truth. Hell no, don't take action. Encourage them. Making every Inspector General's office independent and separated from the departments they oversee. Establishing an independent auditing system to monitor the intelligence agencies. Moving government positions out of Washington. Banning federal employees from taking jobs at the companies they regulate, and, quote-unquote, push a constitutional amendment to impose term limits on members of Congress. Okay, wait a minute. Back that one up. While term limits to Congress are needed, they should not include expansion of this president's or any president's powers at all. Moreover, the deep state is more likely the backer to all of this through Heritage Foundation. Some of the bedfellows that are part of Heritage Foundation are going along with the ideology, like the Fabians, in order to get that all-important foothold. For as long as this nation is eventually destroyed, they get their wish. America is no more, cannot use her military to defend the globe. So instead of removing the deep state, this opens our government further to the deep state. Do you get it? Here's another one. MAGA may well be part of the deep state because of certain actors of influence that came up alongside places like the Heritage Foundation that wrote Project 2025, that had executive orders pre-written, ready to sign. You know the money guns that they spray all that fake money all over the place so you can be like a big shot? Yeah, that's like loading a money gun and then spraying it, an executive order gun, and just going click, 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 click. I mean, come on. This administration hit the ground too ready to run. Of course, POTUS had set all this up in the 16 to 20 and had intended to go 20 to 24, and there'd never be another election. Oh, wait, what? Yeah, 24 wouldn't have been Trump again. It would have been Trump continues. If you bring this out to its logical conclusions, the United States government becomes an ecclesiocracy. Okay. According to the Associated Press, the proposal of moving some 10,000 federal employees from Virginia, Maryland, and the District of Columbia, quote unquote, it's causing a lot of anxiety, a lot of discomfort within the workforce as you are faced with these strong, negative, anti-federal worker stances and this uncertainty of what might happen to your job, your home, and your livelihood, quote unquote. Larry Hogan, former governor of Maryland, stated that the relocations, quote, would be devastating to the region, the state of Maryland, and bad for the federal government, unquote. The measure is seen by whom? As retaliatory and damaging to the state's, Maryland's, economy. Philippe Compante, a Bloomberg distinguished professor at Johns Hopkins University, stated, quote, I think it is a positive factor for accountability that you have civil servants also operating as a check on political appointees, and this would be weakened by moving these people away from where the center of government is. So I think from that perspective, it would reduce accountability. Obviously, then, it depends on whether you think this accountability is good or not, unquote. You think? The removal of civil servants that regulate and watch the government is not coincidental. If no one can prove the malfeasance, then how does the government ever come to be accountable to the people who put it in power? It doesn't. Moreover, I'm not confident that a situation cannot arise wherein our Constitution is either so, quote-unquote, transformed or so, quote-unquote, misread that it cannot be at some point dismantled and shut down. Meaning, this POTUS would be king if possible. Now, I'm going to step back and I'm going to pitch this out here. This will not be in the written portion. You'll only get it on the tape. What if a phone call came through and somebody took the job? Say POTUS doesn't leave. One part of the party decides, we're going to put in a doorstop, and they start calling random Social Security numbers. Somebody takes the job. Somebody with a set of balls and a backbone and spine, you know? Somebody who really wants to take a bite out of crime. First off, doing that is unconstitutional, especially if you just went through elections, and because number 47 decides he doesn't want to leave, number 48 can't be accepted. So the doorstop has to be inserted. What's to stop that doorstop from scrapping everything, taking over the God-blessed government, and turning it into the greatest nightmare on earth? Why, nothing. Ooh. You just sit on that. Just think about that. Think about that. Once you make it too easy, too facile for things to go on, anything goes. cutting federal regulations by restoring Executive Order 13771 and asking Congress to make it permanent, implementing a regulatory budget aiming at reducing the federal government every year, requiring all government regulations to be posted publicly in a central database, failing which they would be made null and void, signing a law to, quote-unquote, ban bureaucrats from taking any enforcement action based on informal guidance alone, bringing the independent regulatory agencies such as FCC and FTC, quote-unquote, back under presidential authority, creating, quote-unquote, an ultra-streamlined federal regulatory framework specifically for Freedom Cities, requiring federal employees to pass a new civil service test about, quote-unquote, constitutional limited government, including command of due process rights, equal protection, free speech, religious liberty, federalism, the Fourth Amendment, and other constitutional limits on federal power. This is how you take over a democratic government right under the noses of the general populace. Freedom cities. Freedom cities, from what I know, are these techno cities. These are the brainchilds of the uber rich who do not want to have to deal with American jurisprudence or constitutional law. So they, within our territories, wish to build freedom cities. Either that or they're going to go out and buy islands. The guy that is Mr. Virgin Airlines, remember Virgin Airlines, Virgin Cruises, Virgin Cruise Lines? He's got his own island, and he's just sipping pina coladas and enjoying his party life. He's got his money. He's set for several lifetimes. I don't think that man has lifted his head up. I haven't heard him in the news in a hell of a long time. Last I heard anything about him, he was doing some sort of a space flight program. I don't even know if he's continued it. He's just trucking. He's a person who's probably also paying taxes, maybe. But these freedom cities would be cities that are not under our Constitution. If they trial well, they'll take us over. This is what's known as a threat domestically, folks. And then you're going to take over the FCC. That's the communications, the networks, what goes on air, what doesn't. It's why dead air, where you just don't hear anything for several minutes. That's actually a breach of the FCC rules. You have to continue to have something going on air. Either that or you have to edit out the blank spaces like I do. I have a lot of dead air, so I edit. I pull those blank spaces out. So when I go up on YouTube, there's no dead air. So if this ever goes into true broadcast, it's not going to be a problem for the FCC guidelines because I'm not doing dead air. If I do the conversion from Audacity to Open Broadcast Studio, and it ends and I don't click off in time, that's dead air at the end of the broadcast, and I have to scrap that and start it all over again. Kills me. At least it's a playback. It just means I can't do anything on the computer while it's working. Oh, well. So, and then the Federal Trade Commission, the FCC, or it might be the Federal Commerce Commission and Federal Trade Commission. But anyway, putting these things under the presidential authority, no. They need to be independent. They need to be independent. We're creating this ultra-streamlined federal regulatory framework specifically for these cities. No, specifically for the federal government and the United States, all 50, including you, Alaska, hello, and Hawaii, aloha. Yeah, you want to secede from the Union now? Alaska, if you do that, Putin's waiting. He'll run you over. And then you think Carney's going to help you? Oh, Canada, watch Alaska make sure she doesn't secede from the United States because she's your buffer between you and Russia. Good morning. Red Dawn coming. Maybe. Spicy. So now then we're going to do civil service tests? No, loyalty test. Fourth Amendment, federalism. Wait, constitutional limits? What constitutional limits? There are already constitutional limits. No, but those are being knocked out, Okay, fine. Stopping unnecessary government expenditure by restoring impoundment, challenging the Impoundment Control Act of 1974 in court, or getting Congress to overturn it. Impoundment is what Tricky Dick was doing. I'm just going to hold that money in the bank and I ain't going to spend it. Y'all ain't going to get a budget because I'm not going to give you the money. Boy, I tell you what. The consequent savings will be in the form of tax reductions, and this will stop inflation and reduce the deficit. No, it won't. It won't go towards it. It'll go in the back pocket of the president that's doing it. You want to reduce the deficit? Look at the debt. We're now over, if not 50 trillion, we're over 50 trillion in debt. No, we need to pay down the God-blessed debt. And then the deficit may start to drop also because the interest payments will go down. For every dollar you don't owe, your interest payments go down because you're owing less. You can start to drop the interest rates on those things. Maybe, maybe not. Every federal agency will be ordered to identify the parts of their budget that, quote, can be saved through efficiencies and waste reduction using impoundment, unquote. Oh, wait. Chainsaw for bureaucracy! Department of Governmental Efficiency. DOGE is what did this. We've already had that rake run over us, and it wasn't pretty. This will not include defense, Medicare, or Social Security. They will be strengthened with some of those funds. Oh, you wish. Oh, how you wish. Oh, you have got to sing me another one, sweetheart. They'll be on the chopping block fast as, well, not the Fed. Defense. What defense? Haven't you heard? We're the new Dow. You know, there's the Dow Jones Industrial, and then there's the Dow. The war fighters. The Department of War. Why, we pump our boys with steroids, so they're suicidally roidal once they get out on that playing field and go after the ragheads in Iran. Iran ran me back home. See Dick run to Iran. See Dick run back home with a raghead at his heel, swinging a scimitar or maybe a nuclear-tipped drone. Scary. Now, this act, according to Google AI, is this. What was the Impoundment Act? That would be your question. The Impoundment Act of 1974 is a U.S. law that limits the president's ability to withhold or refuse to spend funds appropriated by Congress, reasserting the legislative branch's quote-unquote power of the purse. It established formal rules for deferrals, temporary delays, and rescissions, permanent cancellations of federal spending. Apparently, Richard Nixon was, quote-unquote, over-impounding monies, so they curbed him, and now Trump wants that undone. I dare not speculate as to why. Legislative branch's power of the purse. Congress gets to play with the money. Budget reconciliation. The Republicans have been doing this now for some time, and the Democrats need not apply. You know, like Nina? No Irish need apply? Right. Democrats need not apply. Denna. D-E-N-N-A. Democrats need not apply. Yeah, no, they don't have to have any votes in this. Republicans just do a budget reconciliation, and so we kind of have this power of the purse going on right now. This might be impoundment that's been going on. Isn't that nice? The Washington Post said that this policy, quote-unquote, could upend the balance of power between the three branches of the federal government and, quote-unquote, could provoke a dramatic constitutional showdown with vast consequences for how the government operates, and that, quote-unquote, legal scholars say it, quote-unquote, could violate the Constitution and usurp congressional authority by consolidating more power in the executive branch. Oh, hello. Congress is holding the power of the purse. Oh, but who's holding the purse string? POTUS. That's why he wants the impoundment, the Impoundment Control Act, which limited a president's ability to withhold or refuse to spend funds appropriated by Congress. Y'all ain't getting the money. He wants that undone. Why? Because Tricky Dick was doing the impounding. That's what impounding is. President is holding the bag and the purse strings, not Congress. Congress is supposed to hold the purse strings. So yes, we want the power of the purse in the Congress. Undoing that act would place it back into the hands of the president. So I'm sorry, I didn't make that clear. Well, I'm making it clear now. Read the stupid script, the Impoundment Control Act, the Anti-Impoundment Act, if you will. Right. It also states that, quote unquote, unilaterally zeroing out any program he doesn't like or whose recipient has angered him, regardless of Congress's instructions, quote unquote, would be illegal, even if Trump gets the Impoundment Control Act repealed. The New Republic called it a, quote unquote, fascist plan to repeal the act. Having the act is something we want. Repealing the act is something we don't want. Let's just make that clear. On its part, the Hill stated that, on the contrary, impounding is, quote unquote, common sense and, quote unquote, a key tool for the president to pursue U.S. foreign policy and protect national security. Hogs my wash. To say that withholding the use of government funds is common sense is nonsense. You can pocket that money as easily as redirect it. And what do you think this man would do? Money, money, money. Out of the deal. Money, money, money. Give me some more of your money, money, money. To my bank account in Qatar. Hello, Venezuela. Give me your oil. I want your crude. I must sell it. Somebody. They gonna pay. Maybe I'll sell it to America. Or wouldn't that be rich? POTUS takes Venezuelans' crude, and if it's Brent crude that we can use, he sells it to the United States. The United States pays for it, and he puts that money in his bank in Qatar. Now, I'm saying this, but I don't know if that's actually a fact. But can you imagine, with a man like this man as our POTUS right now, considering the grift that he's been doing? I mean, who did he sell that oil to put that money in the bank of Qatar that only he can control? You think it's out there. It's on the internet. It's on the internet. There are a lot of people that think that that's what he's doing. He's banking it, and he's keeping the money. They had a terrible earthquake, and he gave them a few $1 million. He says he's brought in trillions. You know what I want? I wish I could say I'd like to impound that money and put it on the national debt, but it's not ours, it's theirs. Turn it loose, bring in suitable contractors that will work in Venezuela to help them retool their infrastructure for their oil to make it better so they can do their jobs better, and let them reinvest their oil monies in their own state as a sovereign. And see if we can't put somebody in there that the people can work with, that'll work with the people to do good things, like, I don't know, Claudia Sheinbaum in Mexico, universal health care, amongst other things. I hear she's not taking it soft on the cartels either. Ooh, saucy lady. Propositions relating to foreign affairs include negotiating an end to the Russian invasion of Ukraine in 24 hours. Oh, yeah, no, that wasn't done. That can't be done. And POTUS has moved on. Boop. Next, reshuffling government employees in charge of foreign policy, namely, quote unquote, cleaning house of all the warmongers and America last globalists in the deep state, the Pentagon, the State Department, and National Security Industrial Complex, unquote. Wait a minute, what? Instead, we now have warmongers that say they are America first and a massive conflict in Iran, something we were baited into and did not need to be involved in. But wait a minute, warmongers and America last globalists in the deep state? Honey, Heritage Foundation has Fabian written all over it. Fabian, Fabian. Google it. It's an ideological thought. It's a mindset. It's a lens to politics. It's a way of thinking. And there is a thing on CIA and talking about this and that.wordpress.com, the big reveal too, under the hood, and we hosted One Spirit, One Lord And they did an expose, and they tapped their source as CIA.gov. There was a book there. This guy was a whistleblower. He talked about Fabians infiltrating the Heritage Foundation that gives us Project 2025 that's being instituted right now under Agenda 47, which I'm talking about. Interesting. Oh, my God. So, all right, deep state, huh? All right, in the Pentagon, in the State Department, in the National Security Industrial Complex, the State Department? Really? And how is it that Jared Kushner, who isn't a federal employee, is over in Iran with Marco Rubio, cutting deals, flirting disaster, miring us deeper in oil, while the Strait of Hormuz is blockaded by U.S. ships, and Iran, oh sweet Iran, actually controls the strait anyway. How is it that Jared Kushner is involved with any of the foreign affairs? He ain't State Department. He ain't Foreign Affairs Department. What? Rubio is. Kushner's not. Why is he over there? Because he's doing deals for Daddy on the side. All this is grift. We go over, kick a hornet's nest, kill an old man who was the leader of his people. Persia for Persians was an uprising, and that was their problem, not ours. But no. Bibi, Mr. Netanyahu, Mr. Benjamin, I believe I'm Joshua the Expander from the hand of Moses, Netanyahu, baited us into this, and now the world is turning into green. They're going green because they can't get oil, except for China. China can get oil. Yes, and China with BRICS is now in the ascendant thanks to us. Abraham Lincoln was right. If this union is destroyed, it won't be taken from without. It will be taken from within. And hello, Donald, you're the person taking us down from within. Truth was told to me when Barack Obama first took office that he was the man who would hand the government over to the man who would betray us. Hello, Donald. Who was the next president after Mr. Barack Obama got done with us? Oh, dear Jesus, Trump. DJT. A manure pile by any other name would smell as bad. The term deep state keeps coming into this narrative. So what exactly is this deep state? One idea is the cabal of those whose ideology has been for well over a century to remove America from the playing field as any form of superpower. That is the true embedded deep state. We need only look over the last century at the policies that have shifted wealth and business upwards away from the general populace to see this. But the idea of deep state means something embedded, and we have a new deep state. And this is MAGA, literally exchanging one embedded mess for another. It goes on. Increasing military funding, asking, quote-unquote, Europe to reimburse us for the cost of rebuilding the stockpiles sent to Ukraine. As if they'll ever do that. We chose to do that. We chose to participate, didn't we, Biden? And increasing military recruitment by restoring, quote-unquote, the proud culture and honored traditions of America Armed Forces, quote-unquote. And Europe was unable to do this. They weren't able to do this. They weren't able to do this for themselves. During the 2024 campaign, Trump developed his propositions, adding sending troops to Mexico to attack cartel leadership and infrastructure, with the possibility of bombing it, seeking to deport all, quote-unquote, resident aliens who are Hamas sympathizers, and pulling out of the Paris Agreement. That's interesting. After Trump's electoral victory, the possibilities of invading Mexico, annexing Canada, retaking the Panama Canal, and buying Greenland or taking them by force were discussed. Trump also declared his intent of changing the name of the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America. Oh, wait. Venezuela, anyone? Didn't we go into Venezuela? Kick the snot out of Venezuela, take her oil, put it in a bank account in Qatar, give them a little pittance for their earth-shaking event, and then what? Aren't we still holding their president hostage under some, pardon the pun, trumped-up charges? Narco-terrorist! Is he? Can you prove that? Don't you think the Venezuelan people's, military hasn't destroyed that evidence by now? Either you are really bad at doing your work as prosecutors, or you don't intend to prosecute that man forever. Okay, fine. The rant on Fox News that you can find on YouTube with Stephen Miller spilling the ideological beans on the idea that we are and will behave as a superpower intent on taking our hemisphere and making it a techno-state. It's there, and the idiot on Fox News didn't just let that man rant. Thing is, he wasn't an idiot. This is Fox News. He knew that this man was incriminating himself and exposing the intent of the American government under Trump. So he kind of cut this all off. We can't, and then played it anyway. Not very smart. This is a massive power play that would allow China and Russia to dominate their hemispheres, but then we could turn on them in the end. America ruling all, and then the Seven Mountains Mandate via MAGA taking all and declaring a theocracy under the church or an ecclesiocracy, the whole world, quote unquote, for Jesus. But not really. It depends on how you define Jesus in this. Ooh, what? Yeah, it depends on how you define Jesus in this. Propositions relating to health care and Social Security. So many, many more. But we'll just stop here for now, and we will continue that in our next episode. So, until then.